the Skiing Weatherman Report. Meteorologist Herb Stevens here for SnoCountry.com. It is Tuesday the 17th, and I want to take a look at the weather that I expect to unfold over the western resorts in this country and western Canada over the next 2 to 3 weeks. This report is brought to you by the nice folks at UVEX, and the headline is quite simply one that I've had for the last several weeks, and I've just had to figure out a different way to phrase it. Can the pattern finally be changing in the western United States? Because resorts out west, by and large, have had a very difficult time getting any consistent cold, any repeatable pattern for natural snowfall, and it's been a struggle. There's no two ways about it, and as we take a look at the national map, once you get to the high plains from there west, there are no watches or warnings or any real clear indications of any wintertime weather out there, and the regional map shows the same darn thing. And part of the reason, or the big part of the reason, is the configuration of the jet stream. We've seen this ridge along the west coast with a trough in the eastern half of the country over the course of the last 4 or 5 weeks. Now, right now, this trough is starting to expand somewhat. The main axis has been over here in the eastern Great Lakes for a large part of February and the second half of January, but now it's starting to migrate to the west. And what that's doing is allowing colder weather to work its way into the Rockies along the entire length of the range from Montana down to New Mexico. And eventually, it's going to allow a shortwave disturbance to come out of the Gulf of Alaska, crest the top of the ridge, and come down and kind of graze the eastern part of the resorts in the west, meaning the spine of the Rockies and the Wasatch. And I'll show you the sequence in a moment, but it's a sign of things to come because the pattern is sort of backing up. And I think we're going to see this ridge finally get off the coast here in the not-too-distant future, and that's going to help things, at least temporarily. On the visible satellite picture, the skies are as clear as a bell over most of the west. You see the fog offshore. This is creeping into San Francisco Bay today. If you get warming inland, the air rises, and then the cooler air associated with the waters comes in to replace it. It's as simple as that. That's what sucks the fog inland on a daily basis in the summertime. Well, you can see that effect here in the wintertime as well. Now, let's go ahead to Friday. And you can see that the ridge of the axis of the ridge, I should say, is now off the picture. It's out over the eastern Pacific, and that's allowing this shortwave trough to come over the top, come down across the eastern Cascades and into the northern Rockies, and there'll be some light snow in here, I think, on Friday, and then the snow will develop in the Wasatch and into northern Colorado. Amounts don't look especially heavy because this system doesn't have a lot of moisture with it, but it is a step in the right direction. We take a close-up look, and you can see that the shortwave Friday afternoon will be over the mountains of southern Idaho, and the snow should be commencing Friday night in the Wasatch and in the Tetons, and then also in northern Colorado, and then gradually the snow will work its way into central Colorado and down into northern New Mexico as we work through the weekend. There's the Saturday afternoon jet stream map. You can see that the feature is actually not only working its way southeastward, but it's pushing a little bit westward, and some of this cool air is going to make it to the Sierra, and I think the Sierra will actually see some light snow over the weekend as well. It will not be a major dump by any stretch of the imagination, but again, it is a step in the right direction. There's the Saturday afternoon jet stream map. Sunday afternoon, the feature is kind of getting cut off. You see the ridge is still well offshore here by a couple hundred miles. That's a big change from the last month or so. But this feature, as it presses to the west, should be able to generate some snow in the Sierra on Sunday. And again, the snows will continue. Light to moderate snows in the Wasatch and into the central Rockies of Colorado, southern Wyoming later in the weekend, and eventually work their way down into the southern Rockies as well. On Monday, the system starts to get cut off. It'll start to weaken, and then ridging will poke back into the Rockies, and that'll shut off the snow for now. The Monday surface map shows that there will still be some light snow in the mountains of Colorado and northern New Mexico because of the upslope component around the high-pressure system sitting up here over North Dakota. In terms of snowfall amounts over the 7 days, starting Tuesday and running through, today's the 17th, that'll be the 24th. You can see in the higher elevations there are some nice amounts to be expected. Jackson Hole should benefit from the weekend system. Same thing from Steamboat down to Telluride and Wolf Creek. That'll happen later in the weekend down in southern Colorado. And the Canadian forecast for snowfall has pretty much the same distribution. And notice that the northern Sierra, are going to get a little bit of snow out of this as well. This might be overdone somewhat, but it's nice to see those colors on the map. Now, looking forward, we see a change forecast in the PNA, or Pacific North American Teleconnection. And this index, when it is positive, favors a ridge along the west coast and a trough in the east. When it's negative, you get the ridge in the east and a trough in the west. And that's what we really need to develop in the western United States to bring any sort of consistent threats of snowfall. We look at the Canadian ensembles in terms of the jet stream 7 days from now. The ridge is still not too far offshore, but it's far enough offshore to allow some shortwave activity to make it down into the northern Rockies and into the Wasatch and points east sometime next week. They don't look like big systems because we really need the southern branch to get involved to bring the heavy dumps. 10 days from now, the trough is spreading out. You don't see any semblance of the ridge axis. It's well offshore. And 15 days from now, it's more positive, more promising because of this trough that could bring more copious amounts of moisture off the Pacific into the west. And boy, wouldn't we like to see that happen for the month of March. Now, I say all of this with a word of caution, and that is that these warm water temperatures along the west coast aren't going to change anytime soon. And that means that the pattern, because of these water temperatures, will still favor a western ridge and an eastern trough. But if we can change it just for a couple of weeks, that would go a long way toward improving the ski conditions and enhancing the prospects for a longer season through March and into April. So let's take what we can get when we can get it. The ridge is easing offshore. There is some cold air pressing westward as the trough over most of the United States starts to expand. The change is going to allow for the rocky snowfall this weekend that I spoke of. And then further west and up into the Cascades, there's an enhanced potential for snow in late February and early March as the ridge moves offshore and some troughing replaces it. That's it, the latest from SnoCountry.com. I'm Herb Stevens, a skiing weatherman. Once again, I want to thank the folks at UVEX and enjoy your sliding and be safe on the hills. Take care.